and in 1969 was torn down. Today, only this deserted gas station and the statue of the gold panner stand as reminders of an era never to return. The Spaniards called it El Camino Real, the Royal Highway. That section which winds through the Santa Monica Mountains was given the name Cahuenga Pass from the Indian word for little hills. Today, a 10-lane freeway links Hollywood with the San Fernando Valley. At the turn of the century, we needed only room enough for a wagon train or a couple of bikes. In 1911, anticipating the growth of the valley, the Pacific Electric cut through. Then came the automobile. Before the 20s, traffic was a mere trickle. But by 1926, we needed a 72-foot superhighway, which we thought would end all highways. In 13 years, it would be obsolete. So in 1941, we moved the railway and on either side built 4 lanes of unimpeded pavement. That was the start of the Hollywood Freeway. As the 40s came to a close, so did the days of the Pacific Electric. By 1952, the tracks were gone. But the phenomenal early growth of the Southland's far-flung communities wouldn't have been possible without its network of red cars. The Electric's 50-foot right-of-way was easily gobbled up by the hungry freeway to make an extra 2 lanes. Now, as more and more cars clog the freeway system, Angelenos are asking, where do we go from here? Has our love affair with the automobile, like the red cars, reached the end of the line? Continuing northward along the Camino Real, I followed in the footsteps of Fray Junipero Serra, founder of the California Mission System. The 17th of these 21 missions was founded by Serra's successor, Fermín Lasuen, and named after a 13th century Spanish king. The San Fernando Mission of today is almost a complete replica of the original buildings erected in the early 1800s. Before secularization in 1835, the missions were self-reliant communities with workshops, granaries, and cheap native labor. The Indian converts, or Fernandenos, brought gifts as a symbol of friendship. In return, they were highly exploited. Today, not a single Fernandino descendant remains. The convento is the only building remaining in its original form. The Star Fountain, while part of the original mission water system, survives today at a new location in Memory Garden. It was Charles Loomis, founder of the California Landmarks Club, who gave the missions their initial restorative impetus in the 1890s. Just as Father Serra gave them life over 100 years before. South of the San Fernando Mission, and on the Los Angeles side of the Santa Monica Mountains, is Brentwood. Not the Brentwood where the wealthy live, the other Brentwood. The one they used to call the Soldier's Home, or Sawtell. The one with many memories but few survivors, like this antiquated residence. An old streetcar station now serving as a bus stop. A turn-of-the-century chapel that's outlived its usefulness, but too picturesque to tear down. The two-way chapel was so called because it was, in fact, a house divided. Protestants used one end, while Catholics worshipped in the other. When the chapel came into being in 1900, the National Home for Disabled Soldiers had been in existence for some 12 years. These Victorian Baroque dormitories, or domiciliaries, were constructed for the sick and the maimed of America's most terrible war, but were off limits to Rebs. Though 40 years had elapsed since Appomattox, the boys in blue answered the call yet another time. It wouldn't be until 1953 that the last taps were sounded for a Civil War veteran. But in the intervening years, the chapel at the corner of Wilshire and Sawtell opened its doors to survivors of every U.S. conflict. Now the doors are closed, and the domiciliary chapel is only a spectator to war's grim parade. Santa Monica Bay, Southern California's water playground, where the Palisades make high-rise living even more spectacular. In the 1890s, Santa Monicans had no high-rise, but they could lay claim to the world's longest wharf. Located just beyond Santa Monica Canyon, but within the city limits of Los Angeles, the Long Wharf was built by Collis P. Huntington of the Southern Pacific Railroad in an effort to monopolize LA's ocean trade. Hence, he called it Port Los Angeles. This amazing structure brought the Iron Horse almost a mile out to sea. Efficient as Port Los Angeles was, another harbor, San Pedro, offered free access by all railroads to promote competition. Finally, through the eloquence of Senator Stephen M. White, congressional approval for San Pedro was won in 1898. Within 10 years, big steamers no longer docked at the Long Wharf, and by the early 20s, this point of land was all that remained of Huntington's pride and joy. The last of the rails was removed in 1935. Then the roadbed was called California Highway 1. The beachgoers who descend to the sea through Santa Monica Canyon are little aware of the many secrets hidden within these old segments of track or buried beneath the waves of Santa Monica Bay. You won't find it listed in the who's who of historic monuments, but for 3/4 of a century, the California Avenue Incline in Santa Monica has been the city folks' escape ladder to the beach, easing the 100-foot drop down the face of the Palisades. To some, the word beach meant a visit to the Santa Monica Pier, which to this day has never closed. To those who preferred their water more tepid, it meant the huge bathhouse at Ocean Park. But for most of us, the beach was simply a place where for a few lazy hours, you could leave the real world behind. Then, at day's end, we were back on the incline, hoping to reach the top before our radiator lost its cool. Though still in use, the aging incline may be losing its battle with erosion, while above, the wind-swept Palisades have lost none of their fascination. Between Santa Monica and Marina del Rey is a 4-square-mile section of Los Angeles, which might be called one of the last bastions of the bizarre. Where else could you have an address like 448 Linney Canal? And the fact that the place is called Venice is no coincidence. It was the dream of Abbott Kinney, a cigarette maker and promoter, to convert a useless swamp area into a Venice of America, complete with singing gondoliers imported from Italy. The dream came true in 1905. Kinney originally planned to make Venice a center for cultural renaissance, but the public wanted honky-tonk, so Kinney gave them sideshows, joyrides, even a miniature railroad. Unlike the canals in Venice, Italy, Kinney's canals were poorly engineered and before long were condemned as a health hazard. In 1929, all the canals were filled in except the box-like configuration shown in blue. To connect the canals with the beach area, they built Windward Avenue with a magnificent St. Mark Hotel at its ocean end. Venice had something for everyone, even girl watchers. Girl watchers haven't changed. They only dress differently. The gargoyles have a new coat of paint. And Venice is now the roller skating capital of the world. While Abbot Kinney might be shocked by today's Venice, he'd be relieved to know that his dream city has been rescued from its former status of beachfront Skid Row. But he'd see no one mourning the passing of the St. Mark. Yes, most of the old places are gone. They've played their roles in the city's drama and taken their bows. And what of the few that remain? Is there a place for them in the Los Angeles of today? To me, the old landmarks bring us face to face with history. They put the present in perspective. They make the old look seem like the new look. They are the gateways to a world we mustn't forget. They help to make Los Angeles what every great city should be, a healthy composite of yesterday, today, and tomorrow.